What could feel safer to a child than me? That was what I started looking for when I realized that I don't get to decide whether a child feels safe with me. The child does. I quickly realized it had to be something that could take the attention away from me. It couldn't just be something I did. It had to be something I could make talk. Something that could have an identity of its own, but an identity that wasn't the same as me. And that's how I ended up with a puppet. I'm Helen Meurs, and for the past 30 years I've been exploring what a puppet can change in the contact between a child and an adult. In this video, I'm taking you back to the moment when the idea of using a puppet had only just occurred to me. But I had absolutely no idea how to use one. During my teacher training, I had been introduced to puppetry and learned that puppets could work really well with children. I had just never tried it myself. And to be honest, it seemed pretty complicated. For one of my assignments, I had to make a puppet. It was a little clown called Doki. So I had a puppet and I could try it. But I immediately ran into my first problem. How do you actually do this? Where do you start? During my training, we had mostly learned about the effect a puppet could have on children, but not how you actually got to that effect. I thought I needed a logical story. Who was Doki? Where did he come from? Why was he there? Why had I brought him with me? So I worked all of that out. It had turned into a long and fairly complicated story, and within a few minutes of taking Doki out of my bag, I was already completely stuck. Because the children started asking questions. Questions I hadn't thought about at all. In fact, it hadn't even occurred to me that they might interrupt my story. But they did. If you want the whole story of what happened that first time, you can watch it in this video. That first day made something very clear to me. What I wanted from my puppet and what the children wanted from my puppet were still pretty far apart. I wanted to achieve something. They wanted to get to know Doki. And I could see that not only in the questions they asked, but in what they did. They made him a drawing. Someone brought in a box that we could turn into a bed for him. He got a bracelet with beautiful shining beads. A photo that Doki absolutely had to see. And that one pressing question. When is Doki coming back? Apparently, what he had shown them of himself had been enough to make an impression. Slowly I began to understand what the children were actually showing me. They wanted a friend. And me? I wanted information from children that they weren't giving me directly. Information they might be willing to share with a friend. And suddenly those two things came together. If I could make Doki genuinely feel like a friend and have him speak the child's language, then maybe that could give all of us something we needed. My job with Doki became much simpler, to pay attention to what the children apparently wanted him to be and work from there. What you need to know about me is that I never intended to use my puppet as entertainment. I wasn't thinking in terms of puppetry or putting on a puppet show. For me, the puppet wasn't an art form I wanted to master. I was looking for a way to lower barriers for children, to bring up subjects from a different angle, and to hear things from them that they weren't telling me. The role of the puppet as a friend turned out to fit that perfectly, because a friend can come back, not just once for one activity, but again and again. A child can get to know the puppet, and the puppet can get to know the child. A relationship can begin to grow. In the previous video, I came to the conclusion that I can't decide whether a child feels safe with me, but that didn't mean I was powerless. I could create conditions in which a child might choose to make contact, and a puppet turned out to be the perfect tool for doing that. With a puppet, I could create and influence those conditions. Not by telling the child what to do, not by trying even harder to make myself someone they could trust, but by changing the dynamics of the contact itself. Which immediately raises another question, I think. What conditions can a puppet create that I can't create myself? That's what I'm going to explore with you in the next video.